Welcome back. You're listening to the Flow Friday Sports Show on Flow FM. Well, we're continuing to unpack the winter codes, even though we're heading in towards the summer season across our Flow FM network. And one of those was Wimmera netball. Of course, our usual correspondent, Trudy Cook, keeping us up to date with all things throughout the season. But it's time to now check in with the successful coach of the Horsham Saints A-grade netball side, Jess Cannane, because they are the premiers and they're on top of the world. And Jess, it's great to have you on the show. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, Jess, why don't we start from the end, I suppose. The coming off the grand final celebrations, obviously, you can get country sides that are really good all season long, and then right at the end of it, they bottle it when it matters the most, but not you girls. Not the case at all. You managed to get the job done, so must have been a mixture of relief and obviously ecstasy too, knowing that you were the premiers once more in 2023.
Yeah, definitely. So to sort of come into the grand final, as you sort of mentioned, being undefeated is always a bit of a tough gig. And thank goodness the game didn't go too much longer because Horsham Demons were sort of making a bit of a run at us towards sort of the last 3 minutes of the game. So, lucky enough we were able to establish a lead early on and managed to hang on for the win.
Did you feel the pressure going into the game knowing that you had been the best team all season long? Trudy Cook actually made the call, I think 2 weeks before finals even started, that you girls were going to win it. So, that there must come an element of expectation which can put a bit of pressure on the players, or at least perceived pressure.
Yeah, definitely. I think we sort of knew pretty early on from the season that we would end up being the top two sides and that we would play them. So fortunate enough, we kind of had 2 rounds during the season and also a semi-final to play against Horsham. So we knew exactly what level of competition we would be getting, and all of our games were sort of, the result was single digits, and we knew that would be the same coming into the grand final, but we just knew that we needed to stick to playing our game, and that should have been enough to get the job done, which it was.
What was your management style like in that last week going into the grand final? Did you play much on the sort of derby semantics, knowing that you were up against the Ds, or was it a case of just focusing on your own game?
It was pretty much just focusing on what we've been doing throughout training. We were lucky enough that 5 out of our 7 clubs at Horsham Saints were also playing in the grand final, one being our B grade side, so the side just sort of below us. So that meant that everyone was pretty focused on the job that we needed to do and preparing the best way that we could, which was, as I said, focusing on what we needed to do as a club and believing in what that base and that foundation that we created throughout the season, that would be enough to get us through.
It felt like a long season in Wimmera netball. Did you feel it by the end? And what was your sort of overall takeaway from the season that was, just as far as the minor rounds went?
Yeah, it's very similar season to what it has been. We've sort of been with the 9 sides throughout the season, so similar length to what we've been playing over the last few years. Towards sort of the back end, we probably played a couple of sides that we knew that we would have some comfortable wins. So it was more about, as I said, really trying to work and focus on our game and get the most out of those games, knowing that the margin might have blown out a little bit.
Okay, and just taking a look at some of the sides that you have been up against this year, who do you fancy going into 2024 as being a competitor again? Do you think perhaps a team even like the Southern Mallee Giants might be able to hit their straps again going into next year, given that they certainly weren't at their best this year?
Yeah, it's always a bit tricky this time of season just with regards to sort of player movement and player commitments moving into the next season, as netballers we're a little bit slower than the footballers. So I think if they've sort of managed to be able to retain majority of their players, that next season could be a bit of a different result for them. They've had a couple of injuries moving forward, so hopefully they're kind of all ready and healthy and fit and ready to go for next season. I think also sort of the likes of, we saw Dimbula come kind of into the forefront and make it into a prelim final. I think they've got a really young side, which always helps moving forward, that you've got some really good experience, but also some youth on your side.
Okay, now take us all the way back to round 1 or before, even if we go back to pre-season, November-ish of 2022. Tell us about your side. Tell us about the preparations going into 2023 and just profile your team for us a bit as well. What's the team like?
Yeah, no worries. So we were fortunate enough to also win last season. So November was very similar to sort of what it's going to be feeling like coming into this November. So coming off a premiership win last season, it was sort of mainly about making sure that we really locked in our key players moving forward. Then we also went about some recruitment as well. So we managed to sort of get Erin Mellington, who came in from our district league side, to fill one of our key positions in goalkeeper. And then it was sort of really about trying to see what kind of mix of our team we could get involved. We've got lots of experienced players, and then it was sort of about balancing that out with developing our junior players and also sort of bringing in some newer, fresher faces.
And will it be a similar sort of approach going into 2024? You'll look to, I guess, freshen the team up where possible with some of those younger players that are coming through and perhaps looking to plug one or two holes as well with some outsiders coming in. Is that the case? And or do you even need to strengthen it all?
I think at this current point in time, it'll be mainly focusing around at that retention factor. We're fortunate enough that the juniors that have come up and been part of our team throughout this season, majority of them still can play under 17. So that's always handy moving forward, that you sort of hopefully know that they'll still be around for school and things like that. So a really, really big resource there. And then, as I said, it's really about making sure that we can lock in those really key players that have been in majority of our premiership sides and our successful sides over the last sort of 4 to 5 seasons.
And when the gaffer keeps winning, surely that means your job's safe unless you've got other plans.
That's it, yeah. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing next season, but it makes it a little bit easier as a bit of a bargaining chip when you can come off from a premiership.
Oh, fantastic stuff. All right, well, before we go, let's find out more about the person behind the coach. Tell us about your background. I assume you had a playing career, Jess. Tell us all about your love for netball and how long you've been playing, and then when you stepped into the role there at Horsham Saints.
Yeah, no worries. So I've been playing netball for a long time. I'm definitely getting towards the end of my career, so that's sort of been kind of the focus over the last probably. I think I have coached over the last sort of 4 or 5 years on and off at the Saints, and it's sort of been one of my main focuses. Is obviously getting a little bit older now. It's sort of about developing our junior players and refreshing and topping up our senior side. So our future looks extremely bright, which is very, very pleasing from a coaching point of view.
Fantastic. Well, we'll leave it there. That is Jess Cannane, the Horsham Saints A-grade coach. Really appreciate your time, and congratulations again, Jess, on what was a huge 2023 season in which you were victorious and no one could really get near you in the end. Thanks so much for your time, and all the best going into next year, assuming you are with the Horsham Saints again.
Cheers. Thanks so much for your time.